Welcome to our Montana Shared Catalog quarterly webinar. This quarter, it's on serial control. During this session, we're going to talk about what serial control is in our system, whether serial control would be a useful tool for your library, and then after discussing that and weighing the pros and cons, I'm going to demo for you what it looks like when you have serial control all set up for your library and you're simply checking in issues of your periodicals and what that looks like. What it looks like when it's a smooth process. And then we'll sort of go back in time and talk about how to set up serial control for your periodicals and what that process is, from choosing the right bibliographic record to put serial control on, to creating that serial control record and generating predictions. And finally, the importance of removing serial control from a record when you no longer need it. So, serial control in our system. What do we mean by serial control? What we mean is using workflows to track when you receive your periodicals that you're subscribed to and automating the process of cataloging those issues without you having to. And finally, displaying those received issues in the online catalog in a distinct way. And by that, I specifically mean showing your recently received issues and or a summary statement held issues that your library has. And I'll show a couple examples of that. And all of this work happens in the serial control module of workflows for the most part. But before I demo any of this, we often get questions about whether serial control would be useful for our libraries. And that depends on the library and what your needs are. So if your library has a lot of periodical subscriptions, you get a lot of magazines and or academic journals and fill in the blank, and you want to have a good way to choose whether or not they arrive, and you barcode those individual issues, then serial control could be really useful for your library. What that means in the shared catalog is that a lot of our specials and some of our bigger public libraries are using or may be interested in using serial control. Now, if your library doesn't have a lot of subscriptions, so maybe just a handful, and it's not too difficult for you to keep track of that, and or you don't barcode your individual issues, maybe you just count them as ephemeral checkouts, right? Then serial control is maybe too powerful a tool that isn't really what you need. You may already have the best system in place for you. Now, if you're not sure still, based on that criteria, just reach out to us and we can talk you through it and decide whether or not serial control would be good for you. So, checking in issues that you receive using serial control. Let's take a look at what that looks like before we go into the actual setup of creating serial control records and all of that. So as you can see, I'm logged into workflows here and I'm in the serial control module. Don't worry, I'm on test, so I'm not going to mess with anyone's records. And let's say I just got the latest issue of Montana Quarterly, and I know that my library is using serial control to track our periodical subscriptions. So all I have to do is check in the issue I have in hand in the serial control module. So it's right up here at the top of common tasks. I'm going to click check in. Now, because I don't literally have the copy in hand for the purposes of this demo, I'm searching by the index periodical title, and I'm doing it as if I were working at the Bozeman Library. Depending on your library, it may be easiest to change this index setting to something else. For example, maybe you want this specific serial ID. I forget what this stands for, but it can pick up specific issues. Or if you already have your list of serial control ID numbers, you could look by control ID. But regardless, for my purposes, I'm simply going to look it up by title. Okay. Now I know that this is the record that I want. It's already highlighted. And so I'm going to click Check in Issues. Now I'm going to be prompted to verify which serial control record I want to use to check in this issue. And because I'm at the Bozeman Library, I'm going to pick this one and click Check in Issues. So before it checks anything in, it says, hey, here's the expected issue. Is this the one you're talking about? Gives me the volume, issue number, and that it's for fall 2025. That the copies that are expected is 1 copy. And I could say, yes, that is what I have in hand, and check in now. So it just lets me know, all right, we've not only we've created an item record on that record for you, and we generated an automatic barcode for it. Now, if you want to be able to apply barcodes that aren't automatically generated, there's a setting for that. But again, I don't have barcodes. So I'm going to just say OK. And it confirms for me that this copy has been marked as received, that it's created a holdings record. I'll show you that shortly. And that it is added a copy to the catalog for me. Great. So from here, I can either do check in another issue, or I can search for a new periodical. Either of those things. First, what I want to show you is what it's done, both in the back end in terms of cataloging and what that'll look like in the online catalog for your patrons. So really quickly, I'm just going to go to call number and item maintenance. And I'm going to pull up Montana Quarterly again. I have it hyperlinked here. Now, don't mind all of this. So here we have the issue and the copy that I just checked in for the Bozeman Library, and it has generated the call number for me. You'll see here. And my automated barcode. It also has automatically filled out the circulation type of this item, its home location, and any item categories that I wanted to assign to it. So you can see here. So that's what it looks like in the catalog, but what about in the online catalog for patrons? Now, because I created that on test, it's gonna not show up here in the live version of Enterprise, but Bozeman does have issues of Montana Quarterly. So I'll show you what it will look like. It will look something like this, which is what our patrons expect, right? It automatically shows us, shows the patrons what the library owns and its availability. Now, this is an important point where I want to point out for our specials, our special libraries, it'll look a little different. So here I'm on the Montana Historical Society page. I'm going to look up Montana Quarterly again. This is the one I want. And you'll notice that in addition to this available tab, we have a second tab called Holdings that the view display defaults to. And this gives a summary statement of the entirety of holdings of Montana Quarterly that the Historical Society has, kind of all in one chunk. This sort of display is turned on for our special libraries because it seems more useful for the patrons of our special libraries so that they can see really quickly if the library has one of the holdings that they want to view without having to scroll through a longer list, right? Now, this view, this display, is created by something called the MARC Holdings record. And even though the display is only turned on for our special libraries, whenever we create a serial control record and check in issues, a MARC Holdings record created just in case we want to be able to display this kind of information. So that's going to be important going forward when we talk about removing serial control. You don't have to worry about it right now. If I go back to workflows here and check in, if I say next issue, it'll say, okay, here's the next expected issue. Is that correct? Now, if it is correct, I can do the same process of check in now, but sometimes we may get issues out of order. And if that's the case, then you can click down here, different issue. And that'll give me the list of all the issues that are part of this prediction for this year in this case. And there's only one other issue listed. So if I said, actually, I have the spring issue in hand, I could click this and say selected issue to check that one in. Or sometimes, well, not with the Montana Quarterly, but sometimes other periodicals, you may receive an issue that's a combination of multiple issues into one. And if that's the case, you could say combine issues, and it would ask you which issues do you want to combine into one. You would select them, say combine issues, and then it will just double check with you, okay, here's the enumeration that's going to show up, and this will all be part of what's on your call number. Are we still correct in that one issue is expected and one was received? And say, yep, that all looks good. Check it in. And it'll say, okay, we did it. And then if this is the last expected issue that was part of the prediction that had been set up, don't worry, we're going to cover predictions in a moment. You'll get this warning that you've received the last expected issue associated with this serial control record. There are no more expected, and you would be asked to generate more predictions. I'm going to close that for now. So that's kind of what is supposed to be the ease of using serial control once it's all set up. Like you saw, we could track which issues were coming in, or if we missed some. The cataloging was mostly handled for us. And if you're a special library in particular, you get a special kind of display on the online catalog, all by just clicking check in. Unfortunately, although the system administrators can help with a lot of this setup in advance, you'll still be required to apply serial control to the bib records that you need it on. So let's say my library recently started getting architectural digests delivered and we hadn't done that. I can either go into the Create Control wizard, or if I'm feeling a little nervous, I could go into Item Search and Display first, find the right record without clicking the wrong button. I'm going to look up Architect Digest. Excellent. So it looks like it's in the system. sure that this is the right record for the issue I have in my hand. So I'm going view, and in order to find the right bibliographic record to apply serial control to, I'm going to want to start by looking at these fixed fields up at the top, particularly this one that reads DAT underscore TP, which means like the date or type of publication. There's a C in this field, which means that the publication is currently still being published. If you see the letter D as in dog, that means that either the periodical is no longer being published or it's been superseded by a new periodical title. So it looks like it's currently being published. The next place I'm going to look are these date 1 and date 2 fields. Date 1 indicates the initial year of publication. Date 2 here has an open-ended number, 9999, which just means that thus far there is no end date of publication. It's still being published. So this hasn't been filled out with an end year date yet. You can also see we've got something listed in frequency. M stands for monthly. And if I need more information, I can always look further into this record. But for my purposes, I'm going to decide that this is the record I need, right? You'll see that there is a Mark Holdings tab up here. Now, that is because other libraries appear to have holdings about this showing in their online catalog. That could mean that they already applied serial control to it. But just because a record has a Mark Holdings tab and shows other libraries have that, it doesn't mean it's necessarily the right record for your library. So you always want to double check in the record itself. Okay, so this is the bibliographic record I want. So now I'm going to go to Create Control, and I'm going to pull that up. And I'll get this pop-up that says, hey, this title's already under serial control. That's just letting me know that other libraries already have a control on here. You may have noticed earlier that Bozeman was listed on the Mark Holdings field as well. I'm just adding a new control for Bozeman for instructional purposes, and I'm going to remove it later. Let's just pretend that there isn't already Bozeman on here. So I'm going to create a new control. And I have it set up to the default for Bozeman, and that the holding code for it is for their adult periodicals. The holding code kind of dictates how the item record is going to be filled out, meaning the circulation type, item categories, that kind of thing. And that'll be something that you discuss with the system administrators if you're getting this set up. So I'm going to say OK. Now I'm also prompted, hey, do you want to select a pattern template from the following list? I think what shows up in the list is usually informed by the bibliographic record. We know we have a monthly publication here, so it lists that at the top. If you're ever unsure if that's the template you want and you want to see other options, you can do so by going to a complete list. But I know that I want this monthly one. Okay. Okay, so here's my serial control record. You'll notice up here underneath the title that we have an serial ID. It is system generated, and the first thing that you need to do is create a new ID that is associated specifically with your library. And this is just so that it's easier to be able to identify which serial control records you've created and are using, because you don't want to mess with another library's control records. So I'm just going to type in this, and I'm going to replicate the number that's up here, but just have a different prefix. So here's my new control ID. You also want to double check that your base call number is how you want it to be. I may want my call number to start with Arc Digest or periodical or magazine or whatever, but I don't want specific volumes, numbers, or dates being part of the base call number. I'm going to remove that. Those will be added once I go to patterns and predictions. So just make sure your base call number is just kind of the first part of your call number without the other identifying information of volume or issue or date, what have you. Because we're on tests and things are a little wonky, I need to change this class scheme to Dewey periodicals. That should be set up for you to default. It should be the right periodical class scheme for your library, but I just have to change it on test. So now I'm done. That's all I have to do on this basic tab. Next, I want to go to patterns. And this is how I tell the record I want my item record enumerated or numbered and what I want to appear on the call number as well. So I'm going to say, okay, Architectural Digest does have volumes indicated and issue numbers. If you want the pattern to have like a different label, you can click on the gadget for that and change it. I'm just going to X out of that for now. And you'll notice that the number of issues I have is limited to 12 here. That's because with every year's worth of Architectural Digest, I only ever have 12 issues, and then it repeats again the next year, issue 1, 2, and 3. If you had something where the issue number is continuous, meaning it didn't repeat like 1 through 12, if it was monthly, maybe the next set of volumes would be 13, 14, 15, and so on, then you'd want to mark this continuous and set a much higher limit. I'm going to turn that off. And because of the pattern template I picked, we know that the chronology type is month. It should also, you'll want to make sure that allow automatic prediction of issues is checked. It should be checked by default. And publication cycle, that should be set based on your chronology type. You shouldn't have to mess with that or worry about claiming information here. The last thing you'll want to check on this record is the distribution tab. So I have it set up for Bozeman that automatically the number of copies I expect to come in is 1. And I want 1 copy to be added to the catalog for me without me having to catalog it. And I want to update that MARC Holdings record. If you want to adjust any of these settings, you could always click this helper modify a distribution and do that accordingly. Like maybe you start expecting more copies, maybe you want more copies to be added to the catalog as a result, or maybe not. You can make those changes here. Close that. But now that I've gone through the basic patterns and distribution tabs, I'm set. So I'm going to create control. And system admins, this is an unexpected pop-up. Do you want me to just close it?
You can click the new holdings record, check that, and then do.
Okay. All right. So now I have this to help, this pop-up is to help me generate predictions. So I know that I'm expecting to get 12 issues every year, but the copy that I have in my hand of Architectural Digest is actually the September issue. I'm not starting with volume 1 or issue 1. I'm starting with, and I actually checked this for accuracy, volume 82 and issue 8 is the September issue. Now you need to fill out the chronology, which is also going to be part of your call number. And we're going to get this documented in our help desk because it can get a little complicated. But if I want the month to show, since this is a monthly publication, I'm going to type in SEP for September 2025. And then you'll have your date of the first prediction, the date expected. I'm acting as if I'm getting this on the first day of September. So I'm just going to enter that in. And the date that you expect this first issue to come in, again, if it's the first day of the month, you'll put that. And you're going to generate predictions. And then it's going to show you in advance, okay, is this what you're expecting your publication delivery for this subscription to look like? That here's the enumeration for this issue. You expect to get it on the first of the month. Does that follow for the next issues? And if that looks good, you'll click Save Prediction. If something looks a little off and you need to tweak something, you can click Redo Prediction. You'll notice here that my issue numbers start over, right? 1 through 12. Okay, so I'm just going to say Save Prediction. And I'll say, okay, that's been created. And the record has been created. Excellent. And here I can see my control again. So let's check in some of these issues now that we've created it. Again, I want to make sure I'm picking Bozeman, and this is the one that I newly created. So I'm going to say check in issues. All right. And it looks like the first expected issue, and this is the one I based my prediction off of that I have in my hand, is the September issue. So I'm going to say check in now. Okay. I received one copy and I now created one additional item record in the catalog and it's been added. So great. So I'm good to go. If I wanted to, I could do next issue or search for new periodical. So let's do next issue. And again, I just want to highlight if a different issue than the one you have in hand, or if you receive a different issue than the next expected issue, you can say, hey, I have a different issue in my hand. And then you can select that here. For example, if the December one came in, I'm going to pick that selected issue. And I'll say, okay, so here's how it's going to appear on the call number. This is the number received. If you need to make any comments here, you can. Check it in. Click OK. That's been created. Start all over. Now, if you want, you can double check here of what has been marked as received. I marked the September and the December issues in and what's expected. This is another way you can kind of double check what's going on with your system. Now, let's say that my library is no longer receiving Architectural Digest. We're several months down the road and maybe we decide to end our subscription, or maybe that serial isn't being published anymore. There's a little bit more work to removing serial control. So I'm going to cover that now. I'm going to click out of these things for now. Okay, I've just been informed that we're not getting Architectural Digest anymore. And so I'm going to want to remove the serial control on that record. So I'm going to open Remove Control. Now, one thing to note is that removing the serial control that you've applied does not automatically discard your items for you, nor does it of the mark holdings display in the online catalog. Removing the serial control, then removing the mark hold, and then handling the individual items. Here's what that looks like. I'm going to go to the Architectural Digest. And they're saying, okay, which serial control record do you want to remove? And I want to remove this one. So I'm going to say remove control. And it's just double checking before I do that, that this is the control I want to remove. I say yes. And it just lets me know, hey, this control has issues associated with it. And I'll say, okay, but I'm going to remove that control anyway, and I'm going to handle those issues in a separate step. And it just lets me know that that control has been removed. Excellent. Now I need to go into call number and item maintenance. I'm going to pull up that same record. And notice again that we have this Mark Holdings tab. I'm going to go in here, and now I need to remove the Mark Holdings that were generated by that serial control record. And what you do, pretty sure it's this one, but it could be this one. Let's say it's this one. I'm going to delete it. And said, are you sure? Yes. Okay, perfect. Now I'm going to call number and item maintenance, and I have to, we've removed the serial control. We've handled the Mark Holdings display in the online catalog, right? But now we still need to deal with these individual items. And if I am getting rid of them all, this is kind of the assumption I'm making, I want to change the home location to discard for both of them. I'll save that one first. Save that. Now, I just took care of these issues as if we had decided we were going to get rid of our entire backlog, right? We're not getting this subscription anymore. We don't want any more issues out on the shelf. We're going to discard all of them. If your library is no longer getting a subscription to a periodical, but you want to keep some of your backlog, that's going to take a few extra steps. We do have that documented, but you'll still follow the same procedure of removing the serial control entirely because you're not going to be using that going forward. When you go into the Mark Holdings, you'll have to go into your specific holdings record. You highlight it, click Modify Holdings, and there will be fields that you'll need to remove depending on which issues you're discarding. And accordingly, you'd have to go in and choose which issues you want to discard also on the item record. So it could be a more slow process if you want to slowly weed those out, right? Versus getting rid of them all at once. But that is the basic process of removing serial control. We've definitely have some catalog cleanup that needs to happen because folks don't remember to remove their controls or their holdings when they discard their items. So we
Created.
have a handful of serial control articles that we've created. Here's the getting started the serial control module. It's about some basics that we covered, and you'll see that there are other serial control articles here as well. Choosing the right record to apply control to, creating the serial control, checking in the expected issues, and we're eventually going to have one on with a little more detail about handling predictions, and then also removing the serial control record. And you mentioned reports, Laura. Did you want to say more about that?
No, like I said, that right now they're kind of basic. They just help libraries who are using it with counts of ones that they've checked in and just a nice list of all of the ones serial controls that they have. And just some useful information for those using the module.
I was going to say that if you are using serial controls and you have created serial controls but forgot to change the serial control ID to have your library prefix instead of the little SC, you can change
Mm-hmm.
that at any time. You can go back and fix those um, so that they
Excellent.
have your library prefix in there. So
Could
that,
modify a control.
yeah, so that yours doesn't get mixed up.
And then, for example, if I wanted to modify this one in Bozeman's, even though they labeled it correctly, I could go in here and on the basic tab, change my new control ID here and click modify. Thank you, Amy.
Yes, and I don't know that we might have somebody using this in there. We do have a report. I don't know if BCA has a similar report, but we can set up a report that will tell you, um, it's called prediction is late, but it can let you know like, oh, you were supposed to get this magazine the last 2 months and you didn't because you didn't check in a copy so that you don't have to remember or track them separately. I know when I was at a public library, we had a little checklist that we tracked our various periodicals on because otherwise it was hard to tell if you got one or not.
Mm-hmm.
So
And I have not created that report in BCA, but it's when I was just, of course, while we're doing this, preparing for this week, I was like, oh, maybe I should do
yeah,
that.
I
But
just wasn't sure but if it can tell the expected issues, it could
yeah,
probably do the
it can.
calendar math.
Yeah.
Well, as always, if folks still have questions after being here for the webinar or viewing the recording, please reach out. We would love to help you.